Hi guys, in this video we'll study about the Opium War. So what is Opium War? Between which countries the Opium War has happened? Next, who was the ruler at that time? Next, the whole story of the Opium War, the beginning and the end. Next, what was the result of the Opium War and what was the impact of that? Now, why did the Opium War was started? All these things we are going to study. So before that, we'll see what is opium. If you see an image over here, you can see some flowers and some seeds. Okay, so now we'll see what is opium. Opium is nothing but a drug, okay, which is obtained from opium poppy. A biological name or a scientific name is given here as Papaver somniferum. This is a plant from where we get a seed. Okay, from that you can see over here, this man, he's cutting that and he is taking some liquid or a milk from there. So with that and after some process, they are going to make that opium drug. Actually, if you want to study in depth about that opium drug, how they are going to make it, so you can just Google it out. But let me tell you, it's an offense to take a drug, okay, or to do anything regarding with the drugs. So just for the sake of study purpose, you can just get into that. You can get some videos on the YouTubes and all. Okay, so nowadays you may be getting the news regarding the drugs that most of the students are getting addicted to the drugs. Okay, so people might be thinking that the present day students itself are getting addicted to the drug. It is not true. This drug addiction started in the mid of the 19th century, okay, in China. Okay, so now we'll see between whom this opium war has happened. This opium war, okay, actually happened for two times. For the first time, this war has happened between the Britishers and the China. And the second war, where the British and the France, that is the French, will combine, and then the war happened with the China. So in this video, in the part 1 of the video, okay, we'll study the war between the British and the China, and in the second part we are going to see the British and the French will combine and then they go for the war, that is opium war with the China, or the China will have a opium war on the British and the French. So now we'll see what is opium war, how did it started, what was the reason to start the opium war, and what was the impact of the opium war. So before getting into that, we'll see who was the ruler at that time when the opium war has happened. The ruler was actually, it was Qing dynasty, Qing, Qing dynasty, which ruled the China from 1644 to 1911 or 1912. I hope you understand. You can just note it down, this dynasty name, which will be helpful for your GK if you are attempting for any competitive exams. Right. So now we'll see the complete description of the opium war. So now, when it comes to the name called as British, hope every Indian know this name. Okay, how did the British enter into India? The simple reason was trade. Yes, the same thing they did with the China. British were having a trade with the Chinese people, that is the Chinese country. So next what happened? Chinese wanted to stop the opium, okay, from the Britishers, that is the British traders, the traders who were getting into the China for the sake of trade, in the name of trade. So at the same time, what these people were doing, the British traders, they used to get into India and take the opium from India. Now you may arise the question, why did India come in the opium war? See, in the mid of 19th century, that is 1841 or 1842, Okay, India was being ruled by the British people, right? The British people were ruling India. So at that time, the agriculture was a main occupation, and the labor wages, the cost of the labor was very less. So what British thought was, they told the farmers of the Indians to grow the opium, and then they exported this opium, which were being grown by the Indians, into the China. Now the question might be arise, why they took the Indian farmers itself? The first is the cost of the farmers, and the second is it was the cheapest and the least distance. What we can say, that least distance, because the distance between the India and China is very less, so they targeted the Indian farmers. So next, what happened? Chinese attempted to stop the opium trade. The British traders were illegally exporting the opium into China, especially mainly from the India. Why did they stop the trade? Why the Chinese wanted to stop the opium trade? It is because whenever a drug or illegal items are being taken into the country, it will first impact on the economy of the country. That's why whenever we get into the airport, we get out of the airport, a custom department will be there just to verify what all things that we are taking from another country into our country. If we pay the tax, then it's okay. If you are not paying the tax, a certain amount or certain quantity of things we can bring from another country. If it exceeds the limit, then they are going to seize them. So, but the opium, as it was a drug, it's actually banned by all the governments. So these traders used to illegally export it inside the China, and most of the Chinese were getting addicted to it. What happened? China people were getting addicted to the drug. So now what happens if someone addicted to the drug? What will be the result of addiction to the drug? Here I have written, it will directly affect to the brain of the human being. Okay. Now the question might be arise, why these people are taking the drugs or becoming addiction of the drugs? Most of the people will tell the things that after taking the drugs, or whenever they get into whenever they get out of the drug things, they will just tell that to come out of the pain they had taken the drugs. But I don't know what actually it is, whether they have taken it for the pain, just to take a relief from the pain, or just for the sake of passionate, I don't know. But the British traders were illegally exporting the drugs to the Chinese people, and those Chinese people were getting addicted to that. So the China wanted to stop it, and they stopped it. In the year 1820, okay, the trade, there was a rapid increase in the trade. Okay, so the impact of that was, the impact that it was a direct impact. The direct impact was on the economy of the China, and the second, another impact was a social economy, where people are getting addicted to the drugs. They are just taking the drugs, they are just sleeping, they are not going for any work, and all this that were happening. So these were the two major impact that happened in the China, that is the economic impact and the social impact. So to stop it, what the Chinese did, they just put the barricade, that is they just wanted to stop the trade. So in the year 1839, what the Chinese government did was, they destroyed around 2000 chests of drugs. So the 2000 chests is around 1400 tons. Sorry, this is not 2000, this is 20,000 chests. So 20,000 chests is around 14,000 tons of drugs were being destroyed by the Chinese government. which were being kept in the, where it was kept, it was kept in the canton, canton. So now the question arises, so you may think what is canton. You can just look into the dictionary, but I'll just explain it. Canton is a government office, government office. So in other words, I can define it as it's a subdivision of a country established for political or administrative purpose, or a local government area. So it's a government offices. So in the government offices itself, these 14,000 tons of drugs were being kept, and the Chinese government destroyed that drug. Next, in the month of July, one major incident happened. What is that major incident? The British sailors who had come to trade, they killed the Chinese villagers. This is the turning point, or this might be the beginning of the Opium War. The Chinese villagers. So now, when we go to another country and if we kill something or if we do any crime, then that country law will be imposed on us. Like for example, if a person from India goes to USA, okay, and he breaks a signal, okay, right? So the USA rules and laws will be applied on that person. So now here what happened? These British people killed the Chinese villagers. Okay, now what British did was, instead of taking those peoples to the Chinese law, they instead of taking those people to the Chinese law and punishing them, they turned it out. Means they doesn't wanted to give the punishment to the people who were responsible for them, who were responsible for the killing of the Chinese villagers, were not being punished under the law of Chinese. That is, British people didn't allow them, or in other words you can say that they refused to punish them, or you can also say that they turned to punish them in the court of Chinese. Why? Because Britishers had some ego at that time. Their law itself was considered as a first thing, so they don't want their people, that is British people, to be punished under the Chinese law. Next, what was the impact of that? So there was an impact, and some oppositions were growing in the villages. Another incident happened, that is the British warship, okay, destroyed the Chinese blockade, okay, the Chinese blockade in the river called as Pearl River. Pearl Pearl River. You can see the image of the Pearl River here. So this is the present day image. These images are being downloaded from the Google. We do not own any copyright on this image. So what happened? Britishers attacked the Chinese blockade. So now what is this blockade? It is a sealing place. What is sealing place? Let's assume that in an airport, this is an airport. I have already taken this example. A person is coming from somewhere other country, okay, and he wants to enter into the India. Let him be the Indian. So what happens? In the airport there is a department called as custom department, where they will check this person in and out. So what are the things that he is bringing from other countries, whether he has paid tax or not. If there is a permission, that is certain things can be taken, a certain quantity of things can be taken into the country. So if the quantity of that thing he is below that, then this person will be allowed, else this will be seized. So these Chinese people had kept the blockade in the Pearl River. The present name for the Pearl River is Zhujiang. Zhujiang. You can just note this down. This can be helpful for your any GK or competitive exam. This river is also called as Chuking. Chukiang. Chuking. So there are three names. You can call it as a Pearl River or Zhujiang or Chuking. Okay, now we'll come back to the story. British ships attacked the Chinese blockades. Okay, where they attacked in the Pearl River. So after attacking, the Chinese didn't kept quiet. Let's assume someone outside us, that is foreigner, is coming to our home, right? Someone is coming to our home and he is attacking on the people who are inside our home. Do you think we are going to sit quiet? No, we are not going to sit quiet. We are going to retaliate. That is, we are going to give some action on that. But what happened at that time? The Britishers were strong. Okay, they had some advanced guns and all. So those people in the year later 1840, they sent what? They sent their army to attack the Chinese, and they occupied the city called as Hong Kong. K-O-N-G. Hong Kong. See now, Britishers attacked the Chinese blockage. In retaliation, the Chinese attacked on the Britishers. So now the Britishers sent their army and they captured the city called as Hong Kong. So again, the Chinese didn't sit quiet. The Chinese also fight back, but the Britishers were good enough to hold their position because they had advanced arms and ammunitions, and their army was also strong, so they could manage to hold their position. After capturing the Hong Kong, they captured Nanjing or Nanking. So after capturing of the Nanking, this Opium War came to an end. So what Chinese people did was, they just wanted to stop this war and they wanted to have a treaty with the British. See, Britishers were very clever people. They used to come to any country. Okay, in the olden days, they did the same thing and the same tactics they applied on all the countries wherever they have ruled. They used to come to countries as a trader, and once they enter into the country, they used to see the political things, the administration and economy of the country, and the behavior of the people. Once they get to know all those things, then they used to start ruling those country by doing some wars and all, or just making or just building a fights between one another, like they did in India. They just set the war between the two kings, that too the Indian kings. This is how they could establish rule in any countries. Thereafter, the Chinese went for the peace negotiation. Okay, so now they signed the Treaty of Nanjing, Nanjing, on 29th of August. So just you can note it down. This can be asked in any of the exams. These are the main key points which you have to remember. Next, what was there in the treaty? Okay, so what do you mean by the treaty? So treaty means it's an agreement that will be signed between any two countries or any two parties. Okay, so inside the treaty, the first point was China has to pay indemnity. So what is indemnity? Indemnity means they has to pay, the Chinese itself has to pay the security amount. See, Britishers came to China. Okay, they conquered their place, that to a Chinese place. In return, the Chinese itself has to give them the indemnity, that is the security amount. See how clever the Britishers, or in other words I can say that how cunning the Britishers were. So next, what was the second thing in the treaty? They has to give up the Hong Kong, that is the Chinese people who were ruling the Hong Kong, they has to give up on the Hong Kong. That means the Britishers will now come and rule the Hong Kong. That means they can establish their government buildings and all. They can have the trade over there. So all the rules and regulations will not be of Chinese but will be of the Britishers. Next, what was the third point? They can increase the number of ports. So before they used to have only some 2 to 3 ports, and after this treaty they could increase the number of ports. If they had 5, so after this treaty they can increase from 5 to 10. Next, increase from one canton to another canton. So now what is canton? First we'll see what is canton. Canton, we have already seen the definition of that. It's a government office or a subdivision government office, right? Next, another thing which was included was the Shanghai port. The Shanghai port was also given up to the Britishers. Next, later in the year 1843, another treaty was signed, that is Treaty of Bogue or Treaty of Human. So after all this treaty, what did the Britishers gain and what did the Chinese people lost? Britishers were given rights to trade openly. That is, they did not need to pay any taxes to the Chinese government. They can come into China and they can have a trade. Next, another major important thing that the Britishers had was that the Chinese law, okay, right? If you go to China and if you do any crime like breaking a signal, the Chinese law will be applied on us. Now if Britishers go to the Chinese and if they do some crimes like murder, robbery, anything like illegal supply of drugs also, the Chinese law will not be applied on the Britishers. So this was the treaty that ended up the Opium War 1. I hope you understood the Opium War 1 story. In the next video I'll come up with the part 2 of the Opium War, which was held between the British, French and the Chinese people. In that part 2, where the Britishers will combine with French, okay, and then they will have a war against the Chinese people. I hope you understand. Thank you for watching. So kindly subscribe to my channel. If there is any suggestion regarding the betterment of the video, you can just comment over there. If there is any additional information which if I have missed in this video, you can just comment it. I'll just correct it out. If there is any mismatch in the points, okay, you can just comment it out. So thank you for watching. We'll meet up in the next video.